Good evening.
Hello.
Good evening.
Hi.
Good evening.
Give us a few minutes.
Good evening.
Friends that are just joining us, we are going to be starting up. I invite all of our panelists to, in the meantime, mute your microphones, but keep your videos on so that when you are spotlighted to talk, they can spotlight you and you can be next to the interpreters who will be assisting. I apologize, friends. I don't have the closed captions settings available at this moment, and that is my fault. I'm not sure how to do that. So we're going to continue to try to work on that. And just give us a few more minutes while people join the meeting, and then we will begin with the 2022 Virtual Mayoral Forum. For those of you asking, this is being recorded.
Recording in progress.
This is also being broadcast live on the Milwaukee Turners Facebook page, if you'd like to join over there. And this will be shared by the participants' pages as well. So we'll start in just a moment. And now I'd like to turn it over to Lisa Jones from Mike Milwaukee.
Thank you, Emilio. Can you, all of you hear me correctly? Just want to make sure you guys can hear me. All right. Well, I am Lisa Jones, and I wanted to say good evening to everyone and thank you for joining us for tonight's mayoral candidate forum. I'm Lisa Jones, the Executive Director and Lead Organizer of MICA, Milwaukee Inner-City Congregations Allied for Hope, and also the co-chair of Red Races in Milwaukee. We thank the candidates for their participation and thank the sponsoring organizations for their work to make this event possible. Community Advocates, Public Policy Institute, Disability Rights Wisconsin, MICA, Milwaukee Mental Health Task Force, Milwaukee Turners, Red Races in Milwaukee, Wisconsin Disability Vote Coalition. Today, you will be hearing from the candidates on a range of issues that are important to you and to the organizations sponsoring this evening's forum. Milwaukee's first open mayoral election in nearly 2 decades is a historic occasion and an opportunity to address longstanding inequities and disparities in our community. We hope today's forum will help prepare you to vote in the spring primary on February 15th and in the April 5th spring election. We encourage everyone to check your voter registration information at myvote.wi.gov and make sure it is current. If you are not registered, you can register at your clerk's office, at early voting, or at your polling place on election day. My Vote Wisconsin can connect you to other voting information, including requesting an absentee ballot, viewing your ballot, or finding your polling place. I now turn it over to Barbara to go through some forum logistics.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Barbara Beckert with Disability Rights Wisconsin, the Milwaukee Mental Health Task Force, and the Disability Vote Coalition. As co-sponsors of this evening's forum, we have a strong commitment to accessibility and inclusion of all community members. I'll review some logistics to help ensure that the forum is accessible to all. ASL interpreters are available. If you need to communicate directly with an interpreter, and have an issue, please note that in the chat and we will reply to you directly. Use the chat feature throughout the briefing. If you need assistance, we will monitor the chat. In addition, our intent was to have live captioning available. Apologies that we've run into some technical difficulties with that, and we hope to resolve that. And if so, we will give you directions in the chat to enable live captioning. So have a good evening, listen to the candidates and be an informed voter. I'll turn it now over to Emilio to walk us through the forum questions.
Hi, friends. I'm Emilio Dottore, the Executive Director of Milwaukee Turners. It's my pleasure to be here with you this evening. We're also going to be assisted by Chrissy Fung and Carrie Kirsch of the Turners, who will be helping us with the timers. Our format for the candidates will be as follows. There will be 30-second opening comments from each of the candidates. There will be approximately 6 moderated questions with 90 seconds each to respond. And if you are following the timer, you can follow along and see how that goes. And we are going to rotate the order in which each candidate answers the questions. At the end of that, there will be a 60-second closing statement. The question topics were selected based on forum sponsor recommendations, as well as input from the community. Questions will also be placed in the chat as they are asked. So this forum, as we mentioned before, is being recorded. We'll edit it and share it later. Forum sponsors will be sharing a link to the recording on their own Facebook pages when it's available. You can also watch it on the Milwaukee Turners Facebook page and our YouTube page once everything is edited. So we're going to begin with tonight's first question. The person to ask the first question, actually, we're going to begin with the 30-second opening statement. I apologize. And we will begin with Alderwoman Marina Dimitrijevic. Then we will go to Bob Donovan, then Aisha Griffin, then Acting Mayor Cavalier Johnson, then Sheriff Arnell Lucas, then Michael Sampson, and then Senator Lena Taylor. And we're going to begin with Alderwoman Dimitrijevic first.
Great. Can you hear me okay?
Perfectly.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for spending your evening with us. I'm Alderwoman Marina Dimitrijevic. I know many of you all from our work on the county board, where I served since 2004, then the state director of the Wisconsin Working Families Party. I'm a mom to a 3- and 5-year-old and older stepchildren, and I'm running because I love this city and we need some new, bold, innovative ideas. I believe I have a progressive record and I am ready to move our city forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Now over to Bob Donovan.
Well, thank you. I certainly want to thank all of you for the opportunity of being here with you tonight. And I will say this, I'm 20 years as an alderman in the city of Milwaukee. I worked hard over that period of time. I believe I developed a reputation of getting things done. And I think that's precisely what this city needs. I'm running for mayor because I want to help Milwaukee get directed in the right direction and address the monumental challenges such as public safety, such as our fiscal crisis, and largely to fill the leadership void that I think has existed in the city for a long, long time. Thank you.
And next, we'll go over to Aisha Griffin.
I don't think she's here, so we're going to go to Cavalier.
Thank you.
Well, good evening, and thank everybody for joining us tonight. I'm Cavalier Johnson. I currently have the honor of serving as our city's mayor. Milwaukee, I believe, is filled with a ton of potential, but that potential will remain untapped unless the city is safe, healthy, and prosperous for all. We've got to embrace holistic public safety in Milwaukee. We've got to rebuild a strong middle class, especially for Black and Latino residents in the city. We've got to work to retain the population that we have and also grow it upwards of 1 million people in this city to make Milwaukee a thriving, attractive place. We got to make smart investments in our infrastructure, make our streets safer for all users, and advocate for the city in the capital so we can move things forward for Milwaukee. We got to get from where we are to the middle of the 21st century, and I want to be the mayor to do that. Thank you.
Thank you too. Sheriff Arnell Lucas.
Good evening, Emilio, and let me thank everyone for inviting me here. I'm Arnell Lucas, currently the sheriff of Milwaukee County, product of this community, product of the Milwaukee Public School System, someone who's had wonderful opportunities afforded them by this great city. And now the challenge that we face is to find someone with experience and leadership to lead this city forward through these challenging times. I hope to be Milwaukee's next mayor to bring those skills and experience that I've learned back to this city that has given me so much. Thank you very much.
Thank you too. And now over to Michael Sampson.
Hi, Michael Sampson. I live off MLK and Brown. Thank you for everyone for coming tonight. I want to say my last dance with my grandma was at Turner Hall to Holy Grail, Jay-Z's song. So I have good memories there. I believe that someone needs the political courage to come in and reform City Hall. And I think my business experience in Milwaukee from a small business standpoint and event planner puts me in a position to do so. I'm excited to come in and just change things up and steer our city into the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And now Senator Lena Taylor.
Good evening. Thank you so much to all of you who have put this together. I'm State Senator Lena Taylor. I've been a legislator for just under 20 years. I'm a lawyer by profession. I live on the block that I grew up on. I'm running because we need a Milwaukee that is a Milwaukee for all. We need a leader with vision and a plan to move us forward. I believe our people need love, and I believe our people need it in order to be able to move this city forward. And I'm looking to give that to us, and I hope tonight you will hear the things that you need to vote for me on February 15th.
Thank you. And now we will begin with a round of questions. Each of you will have 90 seconds to answer the question. When there's only 5 seconds remaining, I will give you the 5-second sign in the corner. The first question is going to address voting rights. Wisconsin is experiencing attacks on our freedom to vote. As mayor, what will you do to ensure that our elections are fully accessible and inclusive of all eligible voters? And what strategies will you use to increase participation of historically disfranchised voters, including people of color, people with disabilities, and individuals with criminal convictions? The first person to answer this question will be Bob Donovan. And for those following,
Can you hear me?
yes, we can hear you now. And the question is also being put in the chat. And I'm happy to repeat it prior to anybody answering.
Yes. Well, yeah, certainly. I think much of this voting rights, what we've had over a period of a number of elections here in Milwaukee and quite frankly, nationally, is a lot of lack of confidence that I hear from a lot of voters as to whether things have been on the up and up. Now that concerns me and it ought to concern everyone. But certainly we want to ensure that everyone who is eligible to vote has the right to vote and can vote easily. I believe that currently is going on. As mayor, I certainly would want to have an election commission that is responsive to whatever needs are in the community, that we make voting accessible. We have every opportunity through early voting and mail-in ballots and so on. So I think voting is certainly accessible to those who want to partake. Now, I think it's important that in our educational system, we teach our kids the importance of voting and participating in our democratic process. I think a lot of that starts in our youth and can be carried on into adulthood. And even teaching civics classes, I think that's so important. You talk to so many young people today, and it's unfortunate their lack of understanding of how government works, just the various branches of government, all of the things that every good citizen ought to know.
Thank you.
Is that you held your hand up, so I'm assuming my time was up.
Yes, sir. That's a 5-second cue for
okay, very good. Thank you.
So to repeat, anybody As the mayoral candidates speak, when you have 5 seconds left, I'll hold up my 5-second sign. Now we're going to go over to Acting Mayor Cavalier Johnson.
Great, and thank you for the question. I think that the right to vote is sacred. It absolutely is. And we had so many people in our country who have fought and died for not just people who look like me, but people throughout our country to be able to have the right to vote. And that's why when confronted with issues around voting in elective office, we've acted, and I've acted, I've led on acting. So recently when commissioners on the Wisconsin Election Commission were being attacked for allowing seniors to vote and were seen during the pandemic, I spoke up on that. I led on the effort to bring millions of dollars to Milwaukee to acquire PPE for polling sites and to give election workers here in our city a raise. Called on council members to come in near midnight to a meeting to protect the city's early voting site locations that were potentially up for a legal challenge from the Wisconsin Institute of Law and Liberty. So I've got a record on fighting for the privilege, the right of individuals in our city to vote. I'll continue to do that as mayor. What I would like to do and will do is work to expand early voting sites so that more people in our city have more than just one day to cast a ballot. There's been conversations for years about having election day to be a holiday. Well, let's find more opportunities for people to cast their ballot in the city of Milwaukee so everybody's voice can be counted and everybody can participate in this democracy.
Thank you. Now over to Sheriff Arnell Lucas.
Well, thank you for the question. Certainly, as we come on the heels of Black History Month, we know the sacrifice of many people of color, women, and others in this country for the right to vote. And that is being challenged today by laws that is making it difficult for individuals to vote. As Milwaukee's next mayor, I'm going to ensure that our young people understand the importance of voting and that they have a right to vote. We've got to make it clear to them that to participate in the process is a right, and it's important that we all participate in the electoral process. We've got to have campaigns to communicate to the public when voting elections are coming upon us and where they can vote. We've got to make those voting sites accessible for everyone. Those persons challenged by physical disabilities, we must make it accessible to all. Early ballot must be sent out. And then we must also ensure that those that are incarcerated, those that are who are pretrial detainees in our facilities, that they have that precious right to vote still and not taken away from them. So I will be a mayor that will be very engaged in making voting access to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. And now over to Michael Sampson.
Yeah, voting is obviously very important for everyone. I was happy to see our voting boxes restored in the city of Milwaukee prior to the upcoming election. I was disappointed and confused to see Alderwoman Dimitrijevic and Acting Mayor Cavalier Johnson were not on the list of Common Council members that were in support of that. So I'd love to hear their opinion on that when it comes around to their turn. Also, we need to continue to fight for more voting places and easier voting places and accessible. So we have to make sure every voting spot is accessible for everyone, is accessible for everyone that has a disability. Continue education efforts. I think, like Bob Donovan said at an early age, that we need to stress the importance of civics classes in schools of the right to vote and the importance of voting. My Vote Wisconsin has done an amazing job on their website with registration and being able to go on there and see where you're registered to vote. Everyone, please go look, because wards have changed. So for the upcoming election, see where your ward is. It's very important. Then also look at the voting rights for ex-offenders. There's people that don't have, just got out of jail and can't vote until 2042, 20 years as they're still on paper until they have the right to vote. So we need to make sure that we change that and make sure that everyone has the right to vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Lena Taylor.
Thank you so much. I think this is a great question because we can say a lot during an election time, but when the moments count, that's when it matters if you're speaking up for voting rights. So in April of 2020, when 175 polling locations were closed and early voting was closed for nearly a week, I used my voice for the people. Even though it happened in Alderman then Johnson's district, he was silent on the issue and did not speak up. What I will do is make sure that there's accessibility. I think that we should be using the Center for Independence as a place with people with disabilities to be able to go and use that as an early voting polling location. I also believe that Sunday voting is important. And right now in this election cycle, we have no early voting happening. So accessibility, accountability, and awareness. I already do many times going to schools to teach our young people about civics and to teach them about the importance of voting. I also take booths and sample ballots to locations in the community for people to learn. So I will continue to be a champion for voter rights as I have nationally and locally as our mayor.
Thank you. And Alderwoman Marina Dimitrijevic.
Yes, good evening. I hope to offer to you tonight, everybody who's listening and watching, a progressive point of view. And on that, I offer you something that might sound and feel and look different. I think much of what we discussed here is being on the defense. And certainly we have to defend against the all total attacks on our democracy. There's a reason that Milwaukee is always chosen to be attacked. It's blatant racist attacks from the state of Wisconsin Republicans or our own federal government and the Republicans in charge. So we must defend at every cost. There's a reason that the absentee ballot boxes were looked at, even though there's been no true proof of anything wrongdoing going there. It's because working people need time to vote, night times, weekends, and it should be a holiday. I called for that the other day, and I'm glad others agree. I was elected in April of 2020, and I authored the Safe Vote program that was on the election boxes, and it used city resources to get absentee information to every Milwaukeean in the city of Milwaukee. What I mean by defense and offense means I commit to you as your mayor that I will use every opportunity and resource in city government to expand voter turnout. You will see an increase in the city of Milwaukee voter turnout in 2022 and 2024 under Marina's Milwaukee. I believe that we need to work towards a vote from home initiative. Other states on the West Coast have that. Let's make it as easy as possible for everyone to participate in democracy at all times.
Thank you. And now we're going to go over to the second question. And we will change the order of responses. What is your vision for Milwaukee's fiscal health within the context of state constraints on our ability to generate additional tax revenue? And please include your plans for job development and investment in parts of Milwaukee other than downtown, the 3rd Ward, and Bronzeville. You will each have 90 seconds to respond, and the question is being pasted in the chat as well. We're going to start with Acting Mayor Cavalier Johnson.
Well, thank you for the question on the city of Milwaukee's fiscal health. Milwaukee's challenges, I think, are difficult. They're complex, they're serious, they're long-term, and the city's current fiscal situation is a prime example of that. I worked over the course of the last year to actually make sure we had enough money in our pension reserve fund so that we're able to absorb the increase that'll be happening in terms of our pension payment coming up. So that's a prime example right there of how I work to make sure that we'll be able to continue providing city services that our residents both need and deserve. I think Milwaukee needs a mayor that will dig in and work to get this solved, because if we don't, we're going to end up facing cuts in our ability to deliver those services. So that's why I invested $30 million in the pension reserve fund. And I've pledged during this campaign to have a cot in the Capitol fighting for Milwaukee every single day, including getting resources back here so that we're able to address issues like this so we can determine our own future, our own destiny. I don't know if I have enough time to address the other part of the question there regarding investments in the neighborhood, but I'll tell you this. The people who live here in the city of Milwaukee need access to family support and work. We have for a really, really long time. When we had the collapse of heavy manufacturing in the city, it created conditions where neighborhoods were mired in poverty. And when they were mired in poverty, that begets violence. So as mayor, I'm going to be working to make sure that every person in this city has access to a family supporting job.
Thank you. Now we're going to Sheriff Arnell Lucas.
Thank you for the question. My vision as Milwaukee's next mayor is to improve our economic health and well-being in this community, in this city, by working in partnership and bringing people together. One of the things that Milwaukee has been very divided along racial and political lines. I want to come in and be Milwaukee's mayor who brings people together so that we can work together to solve our problems. We can bring new businesses to Milwaukee to help us grow our tax base. We can have developers come into Milwaukee, work with the existing neighborhoods to help them grow. They have a vision for neighborhoods from Bayview to Harambe, from River West to all the way out to Wedgwood. It's a vision for the entire city. And we can work with our friends in Madison to bring home the dollars that we so desperately need to meet our fiscal challenges. As a mayor, I'm going to be fighting for opportunities all across our city, working together with people, bringing people together, finding solutions to our problem, investing in men and women of color and Black and Indigenous people, and give them the opportunities to start businesses up and create new capital and become business owners and employers themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we're going over to Michael Sampson.
Yeah, first off, we can't be afraid to ask for help as a city. We have to look to Wauwatosa and West Dallas and Shorewood and some of our neighbors and talk to the mayors of those cities and say, how can we work together? You know, can our fire and police department combine to form, one call service and one response? When I used to live in, I lived in Greenfield for a year, and shared a border with Milwaukee. And one night there was a guy driving recklessly. I called Milwaukee Police Department. They sent me to Greenfield. Called Greenfield. They sent me to Milwaukee. We need, better, relationship with our borders, and that can also save money for our city. One call center, we save money. Our police department currently is at a 56% of our city budget. The next closest in the United States is Tampa at 41%. I don't want to cut cops. I want more cops, but we have to reform our police department to better help, and serve the city of Milwaukee. Right now, we're paying $3 million for a stacked fusion center that was organized after 9/11. We have one of those offices in Madison. Do we need both? If we cut that, that's $3 million right there. I'm interested in bringing a Milwaukee coin to the city. They have one in Miami right now, cryptocurrency. It's helped make the city of Miami $10 million. There's another 5. Milwaukee police overtime. Can we look at what New York's doing and cut the police overtime in half? Now we're at 20. I just made 1/4 of our budget back by just cutting some simple things that we don't need, and we should be in a lot better spot as a budget.
Thank you. And now we are going to go over to Senator Lena Taylor.
Thank you so much. The fiscal health of Milwaukee is probably one of the #1 issues. Our budget challenges are huge. The pension is an issue. And the lack of shared revenue, getting our fair share, is a problem. So I want to analyze it. I want to bring awareness to where we are, and I want to attack it with options that think out of the box. How do we bring new revenue? I'd like to be able to start new industries like urban agriculture, to be able to grow it up. I'd like us to be the hemp capital of the Midwest, if not the world. And in regards to the state, we've got to help our colleagues have more trust or confidence in how we do things. And when we attack it, we have to look at how can we be more efficient with our dollars, including some of the things that Mr. Sampson has spoken to. What we cannot do is just do Band-Aid fixes like the oppressive sales tax kind of concept.
Thank you. And now over to Alderwoman Marina Dimitrijevic.
Thank you. This is definitely a question that we need a little more time for, but what I want to talk about is just like in my own household that I help run and co-manage with my husband, if your budget's tight, which we're facing, you need to make cuts or increase revenue. And so what I think is the most challenging part of this is that Republicans in Madison have dealt us this hand. We are in this situation because of the fact that people in Manitowoc or Ashland or any part of Wisconsin think they know better than Milwaukeeans. We know what's best for the city of Milwaukee. Leave it to local government. Give us the authority that you took away from us to choose how we work with our people to create more revenue. And it could be a sales tax with exclusions to make it less regressive. I just think about all the people that came into town to enjoy the Bucks championship, left town right away, but they could have gave us a couple cents on those beers or the food that they enjoyed in the best city in the state of Wisconsin. In addition, like I said, I think the fact that we haven't got our shared revenue, I'm not asking for more than we deserve. I'm asking for what we deserve. This is the economic engine of the state of Wisconsin. We send some of the most revenue to the state of Wisconsin, and we deserve our fair share. It's why we're set up this way to have to deal with crumbs when we know that this is the place where all the activity and action happens. And so lastly, I also think, and I've called for the full legalization of marijuana. I think that it can help with our racial injustice and it can help produce revenue that we so greatly need and put into our public education system.
Thank you. And now we are going to go over to Bob Donovan.
Okay. Yeah, the fiscal challenges impacting Milwaukee are nothing new, quite frankly. They've been around for quite some time. Sadly, our previous administration, a lot of our elected officials just kicked the can down the road. And now the bill has come due. It's critical that the next mayor be able to work in partnership with the state of Wisconsin. I believe I can do that. And I think that that is, without a doubt, the main partner that we need as a city to move our city forward. Now, some of the other things that were mentioned previously, Mr. Sampson mentioned consolidating or working with our suburbs. I think everything needs to be on the table, quite frankly, when we're dealing with our fiscal challenge. If you look at Milwaukee County, does it make sense that there are 19 commissioners of public works for a county that's the city is the major, by far major part of this Milwaukee County. So I think we need to look at a variety of ways that we can address our costs, but it's so critical to work with the state of Wisconsin in addressing this fiscal and our pension obligations.
Thank you. So we're going to go to a new question now, and I will set it up. Milwaukee has a shortage of affordable ADA accessible quality housing. What is your plan to increase access to housing and to support housing first for community members who are experiencing homelessness? And how will you coordinate these efforts with Milwaukee County and with community groups? Once again, you have 90 seconds to respond. The question is being shared in the chat. And we are going to begin with Acting Mayor Cavalier Johnson.
Oh, actually, we have Arnell.
Oh, pardon me. We're going to begin with Sheriff Arnell Lucas. You're going to have to unmute there.
Okay, can I start over again?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Certainly here in the city of Milwaukee, we've had challenges with housing, affordable housing, and accessible housing. As mayor, I want to work with developers here in the city of Milwaukee to provide affordable housing all throughout the city of Milwaukee so that we can provide opportunities for individuals to move from into affordable homes here in the city of Milwaukee. Then have a plan for moving those individuals from occupancy to home ownership. Milwaukee needs a vision for the people to have home ownership. As my time working with the Grand Avenue Club here in Milwaukee, we worked with a developer to provide affordable housing, accessible housing for those individuals challenged by mental health. And it gave them that pride of having something, owning something. And as mayor, I'm going to work to improve those conditions. We need to make that housing accessible for individuals with physical disabilities and challenges. And again, make it certainly accessible and affordable. Thank you.
Thank you too. And now we are going to go over to Michael Sampson.
Yeah, I think you have to look at certain parts of the city where housing is developed differently. So I was in River West Flyer the other night, and a lot of the housing there is not ADA compliant. From street level, you have to walk up to the porch. So focus on the communities where housing is best at, like a single family, straight up the sidewalk housing is a good model to start, so we can zone in and focus on houses for people in that area. I had a call earlier today with a woman, sad call. She lost her husband during COVID, and she's looking for mortgage help and mortgage relief right now. And she, she's got 2 grandnieces that she's trying to put through Brookfield East. She's living in Milwaukee, and she's facing homelessness and anti-displacement. So we need to, I think we need to look at the next round of ARPA funds that are coming to our city and ask people, have you lost to someone, due to COVID? Did you lose your husband? Did you lose your wife? Are you having problems, paying your mortgage right now? And give those people assist, because there's going to be a lot more homelessness coming from the fallout of COVID that we haven't seen yet. I'm hoping that we have proper programming and stuff in place to put a stop to that. And we just got to keep on planning for the future, because there will be more COVID, there will be another wave, and there will be more sadness. So let's just start prepping for our city.
Thank you. And now we're going to go over to State Senator Lena Taylor.
Can you please repeat the question, because it had about 3 parts to it, and I want to make sure that I address all of the parts. ADA was in there, but also something about homelessness, so I want to be clear.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure. So Milwaukee has a shortage of affordable, ADA accessible quality housing. What is your plan to increase access to housing and to support housing first for community members who are experiencing homelessness? And how will you coordinate these efforts with Milwaukee County and with community groups?
Wonderful. Thank you so much. This is spot on. 60% of the properties that are owned in Milwaukee are owned by people who do not live here. The majority people of color population, Black people, have less than 7% of home ownership. That feeds into the poverty issue. It feeds into a lack of pride in the community, because when you own something and it's yours, you feel a part of it. So we have a shortage of affordable housing. There's no question in the state, but especially also in Milwaukee. I want to say about 30,000 units short. So when you think about that, we have to build quality housing. I'd like to change the plan that we've done that didn't allow citizens to be able to purchase properties and to be able to work that through a program that is similar to Inslee, North Alabama, that allows our students and others, I'd like to make it adults too, can use their sweat equity, kind of like Habitat for Humanity, to be able to take city-owned property and land, be able to use that to learn skills and trades, and also how to be a good tenant, and thus to move into home ownership. I'd like to put all our assets on the table to move us forward in housing by having people do it with work, do it with entrepreneurship, and to move forward in that fashion.
Thank you. And Alderwoman Marina Dimitrijevic.
Yes. If you elect me mayor of Milwaukee, I'll be the first woman mayor ever, and I'll join this historic ballot of candidates here. It's an exciting moment. What I offer to you is a challenge to the status quo. It's not working. It's not working for Milwaukeeans. We were not one city even before the pandemic. When we say let's go back to normal, let's face it, normal wasn't working for most people. If you elect me as mayor, you're electing an organizer, someone who challenges, like I said, the status quo and gets things done. You build a coalition to get things done. If I operate and lead this city with the belief and value that many of you share, that housing is a human right, and the availability and accessibility to safe, clean, affordable, and lead-free housing without lead, paint, and poisoning that we know is in some of our children's blood at this time, if you operate that way, that makes moving this agenda forward much easier. It's why I supported a large amount of money into the Housing Trust Fund. It's why when I was faced with the apartment association at the county, I authored legislation that was actually approved into law to prevent landlords from discriminating against Section 8 rental housing voucher housing holders. The best way to help, I believe, additionally prevent additional homelessness is to prevent it from happening. Let's end foreclosures. Let's try to prevent evictions. We can use public money, as we did at the county, to balance what is an unjust system. So we can make a difference here. Thank you.
Thank you. And now over to Bob Donovan.
Thank you. I would agree actually with a number of the things that have been said, most especially the status quo is not working. You're absolutely right. And we need to be creative. I've heard some very good ideas of projects that have been successful in other communities across America. I have for 20 years as an alderman been able to duplicate a lot of great initiatives that have been successful in other cities across America in a variety of areas. And certainly as mayor, I would want to continue in that vein. I think it's critical that the individual who is sitting in the mayor's office, surround him or herself with the best and the brightest. I think it's important that the mayor appoint a commissioner of city development and sets the priorities for housing and thinks outside the box. As I said previously, there are some projects going on in Racine and Madison, the tiny homes that are built for homeless veterans. I think those are excellent programs and they need to be duplicated here in Milwaukee. So there are any number of things that through the appropriate leadership, beginning at the top, we can move this particular issue or any issue forward.
Thank you. And now over to Acting Mayor Cavalier Johnson.
Great, and thank you so much for the question. It's noted that Milwaukee is about 33,000 units short for affordable housing in our city to satisfy the need that we have here. That's something that we all know very well and something that I'm interested in working on. As a matter of fact, we led the effort in the initial tranche of American Rescue Plan Act dollars to invest the largest dollar amount ever, over $40 million into affordable housing in the city using the inventory of city properties that we have, fixing those properties up and then selling them at affordable rates to homeowners in the city of Milwaukee, and including individuals who have accessibility needs. So we're already leading on working to get those properties up and running, creating a workforce back on the tax rolls where they should be, and doing it at an affordable rate for people who live right here in our city. But that's not enough though. We need to find new ways to increase homeownership and investing city as well as private funds in order to do it. An example that I'd like to pursue is not only using TIF districts that close out and taking those dollars and investing them into opportunities to help people with home ownership, but also trying to leverage those dollars with the nonprofit sector, or even the for-profit sector, to get additional dollars out to help more people in our city access home ownership. Because what Senator Taylor said is right? When folks have access to home ownership, it builds pride, and it builds dignity in our neighborhoods. If we can do that more, then we can tackle so many other things, including issues around public safety. But you've got to solve public.
So I also want to draw attention to the fact that there are many incredible questions being asked in the chat, and assure you that we will share all of these questions and statements with all of the candidates. It's nonstop, and it's impossible for us to share them right now on the Facebook Live as well, but they're very meritorious. We are going to switch gears and jump to a new question. Milwaukee County continues to disproportionately arrest and incarcerate people with mental illness, as well as Black, Latino, and Native American people. Another report released in October 2021 details how the Milwaukee Police Department continues to fail to comply with the Collins settlement and shows that racial profiling has actually increased against Black and Latinx residents. What are you going to do if elected as mayor to ensure that all members of our community have access to respectful, constitutional, and discrimination-free policing, mental health crisis responses, and other public safety services, as well as offering other new approaches? We're going to begin with Michael Sampson. Oh, pardon me. We're beginning with Sheriff Arnell Lucas.
It's my turn to go first again, Emilio. Can you hear me now? All right. Let me say, as Milwaukee County Sheriff, I have worked to ensure that everyone be treated with dignity and respect. In the 3 years since coming into office, we have reorganized and changed the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office to a partner, working with groups here in the city and the county of Milwaukee to keep our community safe. We have gone about doing the right things and doing them the right way. As sheriff, I understand fully that the two things that will land a law enforcement agency in a courtroom is our failure to train and our failure to supervise our people. I want to ensure that as mayor, our police department is ensuring that our people are receiving the best training, as well as ensuring that our people are being supervised, managed properly out on the street, that they are policing in neighborhoods, working cooperatively with the people, and most importantly, adhering to the high standards of law enforcement. And that's something that, again, we must always strive to do our very best in law enforcement to treat people with dignity and respect. I feel it important that as the mayor, you set the example, again, that we will hold those people accountable. And if they're not doing what it is that we expect of them, we have means of which that they will no longer be working in this profession. So as a mayor, I'm going to hold our city accountable for treating everyone with dignity and respect and making sure that those that are not treating people properly are no longer working in the city of Milwaukee.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we go over to Michael Sampson.
Well, as you could probably tell, I am a white guy, so I have not had a lot of problems with law enforcement and racial profiling in my time. I had a story recently. I have two friends that live in Mequon. One's black, one's white. And the black guy said, how many times have you been over or pulled over since you moved to Mequon? And white guy says 0 times. And black guy says, I've been pulled over 5 times in the last year. It's obviously a huge problem everywhere still. We need to fix it. There has to be communication within the police department. Hopefully police officers are speaking up against each other. And again, to protect citizens out there for racial profiling. Our Office of Violence Prevention is doing amazing work. I've been vocal that I'd love to see that office moved more to the north side so they can get to response times faster, or somewhere between the north and south sides instead of being downtown. Continued education on gun laws, gun locks. The Milwaukee Fire Department has gun locks available if you need them. That's very important. I'm a gun owner. I have my conceal and carry. I think everyone needs to have their conceal and carry that has a gun and is carrying. It is your right to carry a gun, but we have to make sure that everyone has a conceal and carry license, is in their system. And just continued education from the state level on straw purchases. And thank you.
Thank you. Now over to Senator Lena Taylor.
Thank you so much. I too agree that Milwaukee County arrests too many individuals with mental health challenges. I also agree that Milwaukee Police Department has failed to address racial profiling. Many of you may remember that my son was taking a turkey to a neighbor, and 6 houses away, he was stopped. And his turkey was thrown to the ground and he was questioned. And even after he cooperated and told them when they asked his mother's name and the officer repeated my name after being told, they put him and locked him in the back of a squad. And he whimpered and he asked if he had done something wrong. That's a rite of passage for way too many African-American boys and Latino boys and girls in this city. It's been an unwanted rite of passage. ACLU and the DOJ has said that we need to do something different. And as I stood then to fight for us to see something different and stood with the people, whether it was Dontre Hamilton's family or whether it was Derek Williams' family or whether it was my son, I will continue to stand in the same way I did in Madison to change the Fire and Police Commission, because that's the only entity that can address this issue, because they hire, fire, and they provide discipline for the police department. So I will continue to be a champion in that way, even as mayor.
Thank you. Alderwoman Marina Dimitrijevic.
Thank you. I'm going to start where the good senator left off. I'm actually suspicious of any plans from Madison Republicans on changing any of our local authority, just like they want to take over our public schools, which I would never stand for. Our Fire and Police Commission is actually the biggest opportunity for change. It's one of the most independent entities, citizen-led in the United States, and we've made great reforms there. As mayor, I'll appoint people from the community that look and feel like they're from our community. It's transparent and they're accountable to our community and they're willing to make change. I didn't just first come in front of the Fire and Police Commission as Alder. I actually stood alongside a group that's endorsed me, an immigrant rights group, Voces de la Frontera, and made sure that immigrants were not being pulled over unfairly and that we had a city that felt welcoming and inclusive for all. This question gets at one of the largest issues facing the city and in this debate. How do we challenge the status quo? It's not working. People don't feel safe. Look at it. The system we have needs to be reimagined. Come on. Who could say that they feel safe right now? People deserve to feel safe in every part of the city, no matter where you live, in your car, in your house, and on the streets. I call for increasing the Department of Health's budget, just as we've done. $16.8 million I sponsored with Malele Coggs for the Office of Violence Prevention. That's the way we can help people be safer, is prevent the violence from ever happening. And in the health department, we can truly reimagine our funds, just like the Denver model, and use health department dollars to provide mental health and social workers in a way that de-escalates and actually get people the services that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we're going to go over to Bob Donovan.
Thank you. Let me first touch on the mental illness situation. As mayor, I would want to appoint a medical advisory board that would work closely with the mayor's office and the health department to advise the mayor on issues such as mental health and steps that we can work with our partners at the state, the federal level, the county to address that particular issue. Second of all, I want to touch on policing. And I will say this, folks, policing in 2022 America is probably the most challenging job that exists, and certainly the most dangerous. And we have ample evidence of how dangerous it has become just in the last year. Now, as mayor, I would stand proudly in support of the brave men and women of the Milwaukee Police Department and the challenging job that they have to perform. And I would expect of them that they enforce the law, all laws, fairly, equally, and without prejudice. And as mayor, I would also say this: I will treat honest mistakes differently from willful misconduct. And I
Thank you.
think it's important
Thank
that
you.
the mayor and our public officials stand behind our officers. Thank you.
And now we are going over to Acting Mayor Cavalier Johnson.
Great, thank you for the question. And you're right, using police to address mental illness is not a proper use of our resources, and we should be looking for different models. Let me start by saying my belief, though, that policing should be fair, it should be impartial, it should be constitutional, it should be community oriented. And I know this firsthand because as a young Black man, I was ripped out of a vehicle by a police officer, forced to sit on the curb, and had my vehicle searched without even giving permission. So to Senator Taylor's point, I know when that incident happened with your son, you never got a formal apology. And so as mayor today, I apologize to you for what happened to your son. Same thing or something similar happened to me coming up in this city. I think that's why I've gotten some reforms implemented by the Fire and Police Commission and also supported settlements when policing has fallen short of our community's expectation. Policing should be balanced, and police officers will be the first to tell you that they can't do it alone. That's why we need to further invest in prevention, in mental health services, and on the front end of life investments into our citizens. That's the kind of thing that I'll be doing as mayor of our city.
Thank you. Once again, I apologize for not having the closed captions enabled in this Zoom, but if you are able to get over to where this is being streamed on Facebook, either on the Milwaukee Turners page or any of our partners pages, you'll see that the live captions are enabled on our screen there. We're going to go to another question now, a public health question. Some zip codes in Milwaukee have higher rates of lead poisoning than even Flint, Michigan. Lead poisoning from paint, water, soil can all cause permanent cognitive damage, behavioral problems, higher school suspension rates, health issues, increased incarceration for violent crimes, including gun violence. What preventative measures will you take if elected mayor to protect our children from lead poisoning? And we are going to begin with Michael Sampson.
Curveball, all right. So lead poisoning is a huge problem in our city. I think there's 68,000 houses that currently have lead poisoning in their water. So we need to address that. We're currently at a rate of fixing those at 1,000 a year, and that is uncalled for. We need to do better. And that's not even addressing lead paint in the houses. I think I was in Denver and they dropped off Brita filters to houses. I don't know how good our system is in finding which houses we have that currently house kids. That needs to be the major focal point right now, and make sure that we're dropping Brita water filters off to those houses. And that could be part of the infrastructure bill money that we're going to be getting coming up, to at least make sure that those kids are drinking safe water, as safe as we can make it for them until we get around to replacing those pipes. And then putting a plan in place to replace the pipes. The infrastructure bill money is coming. Are we ready for it? Let's make sure we start, ripping the ground up and getting stuff, taken care of as soon as possible. So as many houses, 1,000 a year, it's not going to cut it. That's going to take 70 years. We need to go faster. Madison did it. Milwaukee has to be able to do it as well. So we got to put people to work, some good paying city jobs, and let's start taking care of the lead problem.
Thank you. And now over to Senator Lena Taylor.
Thank you so much. This has been an issue that I learned about in 2015, 2016, I began to speak to the issue. I was the only elected that spoke up. I said what we needed to do for our pregnant women, how we needed to do entire environmental analysis of homes and places where individuals have tested positive for lead, for no one at the city level to speak up and to show support, whether they were a staff or an alder person. They said nothing. I brought solutions to the table, and when I brought those solutions to the table, they were ignored. I will tell you, even the department spoke and wrote a letter saying that what I was saying was not true until the day that Robert Miranda was able to begin the domino falling and peeling back that these issues were true. And the mayor at that time, Tom Barrett, first admitted that there was a problem at the Marquette Forum with Mike Goucher. I will continue to be that same champion that I was in 2016, and I will do everything to make sure that we turn the lead lateral work that we need to do in more than 70,000 homes into a workforce development program, but also an entrepreneurial program, because we don't have enough companies that can address the issue.
Thank you. Alderwoman Marina Dimitrijevic.
Yes, thank you. As a mother of young children, I remember both of them being tested for lead not too long ago at their doctor's office. And I'm also the chairwoman of the Public Safety and Health Committee. I need everyone to listen to me here. There is no safe amount of lead in children's blood. It really isn't. And to sit here during some of these meetings and talk about what level the elevated blood lead level is acceptable, it's unacceptable. And if you have a mayor that feels strongly about that and clearly about that, I believe that we can see a change. I have to talk along with public health at the same time with the pandemic. We know that this pandemic has hurt our Black and Brown communities like none other, disproportionately. And I, as your mayor, I get asked all the time, what will you do on day one? And I talk about how day one's gonna be a long day, but that's okay because I barely sleep as it is. We're gonna get out of this pandemic. We can do it. We need to have every tool possible. I've led the way twice on masking to get it done and make sure that we're not spreading this harmful virus any more than we need to. I want kids to be safe in schools. Right now, they're in our public schools and many have lead poisoning, which we know affects behavior and learning abilities. The lead paint is poisonous. We need to work with landlords to make sure and incentivize what it looks like to be a lead-free house in a lead-free Milwaukee. Again, the access to safe, clean drinking water, it's a human right. If you have those values, that will be the agenda that we will move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob Donovan.
Thank you. I would say so much of this comes down to leadership, and a couple of the things that were said previously by some of the other candidates, I hit it right on the head. We went through quite a lengthy period of, quite frankly, mismanagement in the health department for a long, long time, and a mayor who, quite frankly, didn't have any priorities, certainly not lead. And so we went through a period with the health department where it led to the firing of the commissioner. New people came on. Citizens had to come forward with one issue after another. So the bottom line is this. If we have someone in the mayor's office that takes this as a priority and can get the right people in the right positions and then connect with our partners in Madison and the federal government, the money will be there if those connections are made, and it is a priority for the mayor. That's the real question. And it certainly would be a priority for me. I have a granddaughter who has lead poisoning, and it's certainly a concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Now over to Acting Mayor Cavalier Johnson.
Great, and thank you for the question. What Alderwoman Dimitrijevic said is true. There is no safe amount of lead for any person, but especially for our babies. And I know this firsthand because I've got two daughters that are 3 years old. They'll be 4 in March, but they're just getting out of that critical stage in life, the 0 to 3 age range when most brain development in humans occurs. But I think it's important for us to have a holistic idea in mind when we talk about eliminating lead risks in Milwaukee. Oftentimes there's a conversation about removing lead-based laterals, and that's important, and we should do it. Madison has done it, as candidate Sampson said. Green Bay just finished it as well. Milwaukee has half of the lead service laterals in the entire state of Wisconsin, some 70,000 of them. And so it's a huge undertaking that costs upwards of $1 billion. And I'm looking forward to being able to invest infrastructure dollars from the federal government in order to speed that up and create a workforce around being able to do just that. I should say it's also noted that we invested in the spending plan that I put together on the initial tranche of ARPA funds, allocated over $20 million to address the lead issue here in Milwaukee, right? So it's important to address the lead service lateral piece, but it's also important to address lead in paint, lead in soil, the leaching that happens from interior plumbing in the home. That's where the most lead poisoning in children occurs. And if you don't believe it, look at the statistics of where children are lead poisoned. The highest concentration of lead poisoning in Milwaukee actually is in the 14th Alderman district, represented by the Alderwoman.
And the final answer for this question will be to Sheriff Lucas.
Thank you for the question. This is certainly an issue where we have not seen leadership from the city of Milwaukee to get to the point where we are in knowing we have the problem with the lead laterals as well as the lead paint issues. Have to fire a commissioner during the holidays a few years ago. It's indicative of the fact that we just languished and let this problem continue to grow and develop while thinking it's happening in somebody else's backyard when it was all the time happening here in our backyard. As mayor, I'm going to be very strategic and very intentional in terms of communicating with families, moving into homes that have lead laterals, moving into homes and neighborhoods that have lead paint to ensure that they know exactly how safe it is for them and their children. Certainly, we have an opportunity with monies from the ARPA as well as the Build Back Better to have a mitigation plan and program in place that we can speed up the removal of those lead laterals here in the city of Milwaukee. We've been waiting here for way too long for leaders to step forward on this issue while our young people and our people are dying as a result of this lead in our water and in our air. We've got to have a leader who's very strong, very strategic, and very intentional in getting this problem solved. And I'm going to work to do that as mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. And this, we're coming up to our final question of the evening prior to the 1-minute closing statements. So I ask you all, disabled and elderly residents of the city of Milwaukee continue to experience many barriers to accessibility, including the city's failure to have the federally mandated numbers of accessible parking spaces, issues with snow removal, and failure to ensure ADA accessibility at government facilities, programs, and events. What is your plan to move Milwaukee forward as an accessible and inclusive community and to ensure that people who experience accessibility challenges are a part of that process? And we are going to start with Senator Lena Taylor.
The first thing I'll do is listen. Listen to those individuals speak about the challenges that exist so that we can implement changes. I will also do things so that the elderly in particular have an opportunity to not be exposed to gentrification in the way that they have, to maybe fight in Madison, as I have already with legislation, to figure out what we can do to allow a reprieve for our elderly residents, create programs that can help with snow removal, grass cutting, and those types of things. And last but not least, what I will do is make sure that however we spend our money, that we are doing things so that we can grow, again, businesses, because we cannot move our community forward if we do not change that, and making sure that those businesses are using internship opportunities so that we can help the populations that you have spoken about more readily. When they can't get through because of the snow, that's a challenge. And we need to make sure that we address those issues.
Thank you. Alderwoman Marina Dimitrijevic.
Thank you so much. I ask you to visualize with me, and I know many of the people here have had to endure this, what an all-inclusive city for all abilities looks and feels like at all levels. If that is our driving goal in the city of Milwaukee, a place where everyone has equal access to everything, at all times, I believe that everyone can maximize their potential and ultimate empowerment. And what does that mean? It means that every one of our residents can work to live as independently as possible. That is a welcoming, inclusive Milwaukee. And I know that might sound overly idealistic, but it's not. It's not when you elect me mayor. We can get down to business. There's other cities like Pittsburgh that have a true city-county task force, and it should be in every single thing we do as a city. If we're going to see unprecedented amounts of federal funds come through to rebuild the city, we better retrofit it and rebuild it so that everybody has accessibility to everything at all times. And that means, like we said, removal of snow. It means working to remove as many cars from the streets as possible and improving public transportation, giving everyone the option and ability to have mass transit and public transportation as much as possible. And I want to increase funding in the Department of Public Works to make sure that we have the staff to do it and people with all abilities and planning at every level.
Thank you. And now to Bob Donovan.
Thank you. I would agree with Senator Taylor when she said that listening is the most important thing. And I will say this, as mayor, of course, I would have an open door policy, willing to sit down with any individual or any group regarding any issue, including this one. When it comes to, and then fashioning a strategy to deal with whatever the problem may be and thinking outside the box. One of the things that we did when I was alderman, we reached out to a number of youth organizations, helped them, connected them with elderly in our district, disabled to shovel their walks and so on. You know, another thing too, I would like to see a more aggressive approach to individuals sentenced to community service, that they could be utilized to help the elderly or the disabled and snow shoveling and things like that. But again, that's just an example of the right person in the right position and providing some leadership on an issue that if the mayor says it's a priority, it'll get done, or it should, if he's paying attention, or she is. Thank you.
Thank you. And now to Acting Mayor Cavalier Johnson.
Great, and thank you so much for the question. Accessibility, especially ADA accessibility, is crucial to Milwaukee, as the city needs to be an inclusive place, an inclusive city that allows all of our residents, every single one of us, to have access regardless of what our physical ability may happen to be. That's why I was happy to bring forward a program that actually helped seniors in the city of Milwaukee. It was called Project Andrew, and it was named in memory of a crossing guard in the city of Milwaukee who unfortunately lost his life due to senseless, reckless driving in Milwaukee. Speaking about reckless driving, that's one of the reasons why we need to change the way our infrastructure is configured in our city, right? We can't have infrastructure that only allows for one mode of transit or people who are highly mobile to be able to utilize it to maximum ability. So we need to have infrastructure that allows for people who are in wheelchairs to have access, that allows people who are bicyclists to have access and safe access. So I don't mean bike lanes that are painted, I mean bike lanes that are protected, which also helps to curb issues around reckless driving. The infrastructure needs to accommodate public transit that also is used by people who have accessibility issues as well. That's the sort of mayor that I think the city needs to have, one who's going to keep an eye on accessibility for all the residents of the city of Milwaukee, not just those who have the most bodily ability, movement ability.
Thank you. And now over to Sheriff Lucas.
Here's another issue, I'm sorry, where what is taking us so long to address this problem? why haven't we had those that are faced by these challenges at the table, hearing what their concerns are, and then acting on them? As mayor, they are going to have a seat at the table. We're going to listen to their concerns, and we're going to go out and address those concerns promptly. We need to make Milwaukee a much more inclusive and accessible city. At my time at Major League Baseball, we had to ensure that all of the clubs were compliant with ADA issues as it related to access to their facilities. And in some instances, it was challenged because, again, the number that did come, but it was mandated that they did meet the requirement set by the commissioner's office, and they adhered to it. It's going to be the same thing here as mayor. We're going to put in requirements for property owners and landlords to ensure that they are making properties accessible and inclusive for all. And then we're going to hold them accountable for that. We need to, again, hear from those that are most impacted and affected by it and go about making the change that is needed to enhance and improve their quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you. And now, Michael Sampson.
Yeah, we're an old city, so a lot of the buildings here, need to be updated. They lack the infrastructure for elevators and ramps, so we need to rethink a lot of the buildings that are currently in place. I've been through licensing procedures for new businesses. We've got to make sure that the following steps are being placed for ramps and handicap accessible spots for all new development. I have the time to go out to DC. Going out to DC, getting loans and grants and bringing them back to Milwaukee, that helps with disabled citizens at our city and helps put more money and infrastructure in for the ramps. So eventually we're all going to live long enough that we're all going to need help. So we need to have everything in place right now to support everyone that's currently living and all of us for the future, with ramps, proper infrastructure, like Acting Mayor Johnson said, for biking, for walking. We need to put good support into our roads and sidewalks. Make sure the sidewalks are plowed. DPW is luckily, we've had a pretty mild winter so far, but hopefully we have everything put in place that if we did have a snowstorm, that alleys and sidewalks would be properly plowed for everyone that lives in Milwaukee. The Bucks for Game 6, they had to put some infrastructure in for some handicap individuals. Luckily, they did it quickly. But Game 1 in the plaza, they didn't have the infrastructure set up. So we got to plan for the future and plan for future events as Milwaukee grows.
Thank you. And now we're going to allow each candidate 1 minute for closing statements. And then please continue to stay with us as we have some additional information to share after that. To reiterate, there are an incredible number of very important questions from Milwaukeeans in the chat. Each of these questions will be shared with the mayoral hopefuls so that they in turn can respond to them publicly or conveniently later on. So to begin, each candidate has 1 minute for a closing statement, and we will start with Alderwoman Marina Dimitrijevic.
Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm sure many of you are cooking dinner, getting home from work, putting your children to sleep. Look, this is a very important, unique election. It doesn't open up very often. We've only had a couple mayors in the last 100 years. So I ask you to think long and hard of who stands out, who shares your values, who has a record, who's challenged the status quo. I have a record of fighting for the 99%, not just the 1%. This person who is mayor will be sitting in the mayor's seat as we get the largest amount of federal funds ever. And I don't want to just rebuild the city. I want to rebuild the lives of the people in our city. I believe I'm the woman for the job. I've demonstrated that to you all with a great progressive record. I have the most supportive labor unions, a group like Voces de la Frontera, and we're building a diverse coalition to deliver change. Our people in Milwaukee need it now more than ever. I want the best public education system ever for our city. I want higher wages and I want to help working families. Please consider me on February 15th.
Thank you. Bob Donovan.
Thank you all. I want to thank you for joining us here tonight. And I'd just like to say this, Milwaukee may need many, many things. That's obvious. But I'm pretty certain it doesn't need more of the same. And Was I on there or no? Oh,
You were on there. We could hear you.
no, okay. Okay, I didn't see myself. So anyway, Milwaukee doesn't need more of the same. And the sad reality is every one of my opponents, very nice people, I know them all, but they're just more of the same. I believe we need to set a new direction for Milwaukee, the right direction. I can't believe how this city has deteriorated in just the last 2 years, folks. We need to get a better handle on our public safety. We need our fiscal challenges to be addressed. And job number one is to fill that leadership void in Milwaukee. For 20 years, I represented the residents of the 8th District. I fought for their best interests. And as mayor, I'll fight for all of us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we go over to Acting Mayor Cavalier Johnson.
Great, and thank you so much, Emilio. Thank you for everybody who allowed myself and every other candidate to be before you tonight to express our views about how under our leadership we would move to make the city of Milwaukee better. I would remind folks that are watching that Milwaukee's had a lot of challenges that are complex, difficult, and long-term. Now, I believe that the next mayor of Milwaukee needs to have the experience of living in the most depressed neighborhoods in Milwaukee. I have that. I served as city council president, putting together a coalition of council members in order to not only get that position, but also to move big things forward in the city of Milwaukee. I've got that experience. And I've got the foresight of mayor because I currently hold the position. I think these three things uniquely qualify me to serve as mayor of the city of Milwaukee, and I'm looking forward to continuing on in service. I hope to earn your vote on February 15th.
Thank you. And now over to Sheriff Arnell Lucas.
Well, let me thank you, Emilio. Let me thank all of the partners for allowing us here today. I'd like to thank my counterparts here on the stage. As somebody who's been a lifelong resident of this community, someone who has a passion and commitment to this community, who started at an early age in public service at age 18, continued on, had some wonderful opportunities afforded him by this great city, and then to come back and serve as Milwaukee's sheriff has been a wonderful, wonderful career. But this next opportunity, I think, gives me an opportunity to do something different than any others. I've come from a different perspective. I've had real life experience in managing people, managing budgets, traveled the country and the world over, ensuring that people are safe and people have an opportunity to enjoy a baseball game. As Milwaukee's next mayor, I'm ready to come in, make those critical, difficult decisions to move our city forward. I'm asking for your vote on February 15th to be Milwaukee's next mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. And now over to Michael Sampson.
First off, thank you everyone for coming out tonight. Thank you for the other candidates for being here. I plan to stay in Milwaukee. I want to fight for Milwaukee. I'm sick of getting woken up by gunshots in 3 a.m. I'm sick of driving these roads with reckless drivers. We need red light cameras yesterday. I'm sick of dodging potholes in our road. We have to be able to look at everyone and say, we can do better. MPS, we need to do better. DPW, need to do better. Milwaukee Police Department, we need to do better. We need to get to 600,000 people. We need more people in our city. We got to retain talent in our city, and we have to have a vision of what Milwaukee is going to look like in 10, 20 years from now and start preparing for that. So if you want to vote, vote change. Early voting starts tomorrow. Vote Samson. I'd love to have you. Let's start turning the city around and move us into the future. Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Thank you. And Senator Lena Taylor.
Thank you so much. I'm born and raised in Milwaukee. I live on the block that I grew up on. I could be anywhere, but I choose to be here because I want to be a part of the change that we need to see in Milwaukee and that we deserve. If you want the status quo, I'm not your candidate. But if you want a visionary, if you want someone who will serve and who will show up, who will not lock you out of committee meetings and will not lock you out of the mayor's office, then I'm your candidate. If you want someone who will think out of the box and make us a leader in agriculture, make us a leader in apprenticeships, make us have better stats for home ownership and entrepreneurship, then I'm your girl. If you want someone who will speak up for you when you are not in the room and make sure that equity is a priority in this city, then I'm your one. If you want someone who will make sure that voter suppression does not happen and inclusion is for everyone, I'm the candidate. Vote Lena Taylor on February 15th, or for that matter, start tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd also like to take this moment before I turn the floor over to Carrie Southern. Like all of you, thank you very much for attending. Thank you for your time and your thoughts, mayoral candidates, those of you who've tuned in on Facebook Live and here in the chat. It's so incredibly vital that Milwaukeeans make informed decisions as we guide our city forward. Two little events I'd like to promote before we move over to Carrie. If you enjoyed this forum and you want to participate in other ones, we are on February 8th from 3 to 4:30 p.m. We will have a forum called A Look Inside Mental Illness and Our Criminal Justice System. That panel is being sponsored by the Milwaukee Mental Health Task Force and the Milwaukee Turners. The link is shared in the chat, and we will share it in two places. And very importantly, February 10th and February 17th, we're hosting 2 Zero Youth Corrections forums with the Milwaukee Turners and Milwaukee County's Department of Health and Human Services, Children, Youth, and Family Services to solicit innovative youth justice ideas from the community. And we invite all of you to participate also. That link will also be shared in the chats. It was my pleasure to be here this evening, and it's also my pleasure to introduce Carrie Southern.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Carrie Southern. I'm the Deputy Director of the Community Advocates Public Policy Institute. I just want to echo Emilio and others and thank, on behalf of our sponsoring agencies, both the candidates for your participation and to everyone else who attended for your commitment to being informed voters. As you know, 2022 is an important election year, so we encourage you to get informed about the candidates, your voting rights, and to vote in each of the 4 elections this year beginning February 15th. We wanted to share a couple of resources to make sure that you're prepared. Web links and telephone numbers will be shared in the chat, so feel free to pull them from there as well. If you haven't, check out My Vote Wisconsin to see if you are registered to vote, request your absentee ballot for the year, find your polling place, and see what's on your ballot. The City of Milwaukee Election Commission website also includes information on early voting sites. Some of the locations begin as early as tomorrow. In Wisconsin, it's required that you have a photo ID to vote. So if you have a Wisconsin driver's license or Wisconsin DOT issued ID card, you have what you need. If you need additional information, check out the Bring It Back to the Ballot website. The DMV has a couple of resources we wanted to share. They have a voter ID hotline. In addition, their website has information where you can find out how to get a free photo ID for voting. Disability Rights Wisconsin also has a voter hotline. Within that hotline, you can obtain assistance on how to answer your voting questions, including your rights and accommodations for disabled voters. And finally, on the Disability Vote website, you can find a fact sheet entitled Make Your Plan to Vote 2022 Fact Sheet. And it'll walk you through everything you need to know step by step. I'll turn it back over to Emilio for final thoughts.
Thank you again, my friends. Please take full advantage of the resources that Carrie shared. Voting is arguably one of the most important things you can do now. You've heard from all of these candidates, each of whom hopes to be the next mayor of Milwaukee. It's up to you. And we will see you at the polls. We'll see you at the next forums. Once again, everybody, thank you for participating. You have a great evening.
Thank you, Emilio, and thank you, Milwaukee Turners and all of the other partners. Have a great night, everyone.
Night. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.